Hello, welcome into J&N Travels Sports Edition. I'm here today with my co-host Brandon. How you doing today, Brandon?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, doing very good. So I wonder if we're getting the volume out there. If anyone could give us a thumbs up if you're hearing anything, I would appreciate it. Okay, well, we're going to cover this is a 4-quarter show. We're going to cover 4 items today. The first is just our news, our current sports news. Our second one is going to be Brandon discussing how to prepare for a race. Our third one will be on the Super Field Soccer League, World Soccer League. And the last one will be on the NFL Draft. So welcome in, anyone's here. I noticed Najuma Brown is in today. Thank you for joining us, Najuma. Gabby Christensen. Maxwell Smart. Thank you for joining us. Okay, I'm getting thumbs up, so I'm hoping that means that they can hear us okay. We had a little problems with the internet earlier. So we'll go right into it, Brandon. And first thing will be our news items. Let's see.
Yeah. So
bring up the first quarter.
Sure.
Okay, first quarter, current sports news. Go right ahead, Brandon.
All right. Yeah. So Michael Foster Jr. ended up picking G League over college, which I think a lot of high school standouts are going to start to do more of this, going overseas and making money, and then heading to the NBA draft. So he had a chance to sign with Florida State or Georgia, and he ended up going overseas to play professional basketball and make some money. So I think that's something that's probably going to happen more often than not in the upcoming years.
Yeah, he's like the third or fourth person who's done that. And I guess the big focus on that is because they claim that the coaching and stuff focuses on their talents and just to make them part of a team. They want that eye, I guess.
Yeah, I think so, as well as the money aspect of it too. I think making some money as well too, until colleges start to pay athletes,
right?
And that could be in the future as well too.
And that's probably right around the corner when they start looking at that.
Yeah, there's been a lot of conversation about that for sure.
Welcome in, Jeffrey Resendez. Thank you for joining us.
And secondly, we have an interesting trade between two of the top AFC teams, with the Baltimore Ravens as well as the Kansas City Chiefs. So you have the Chiefs essentially trading a plethora of draft picks for one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL. So kind of shoring up the offensive line for Kansas City, which obviously was an issue in the Super Bowl. And you have the Baltimore Ravens getting a decent amount of draft capital.
Welcome in, Danny from Griswold Family Vacate. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, that's a big move. I think they looked at Tampa Bay this year and figured out we got to protect that quarterback, because that was a big downfall in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree. How often do you see two top teams in the same kind of conference trading with each other too? You don't really see that often, which is interesting. Yeah. We'll be discussing the NFL draft that's coming up in a couple quarters, but we have the Detroit Lions open to trading the number 7 overall pick, and so that's got some people speculating on what's kind of going on there. Will there be a team that trades up? There's plenty of quarterbacks that have been in discussion that are potentially going 1 through maybe 7. What's going on with that?
Yeah, I'm hoping my Patriots are one of them that are looking at it. So we'll see.
If you had your pick, who would you be looking for as a quarterback for?
I like Justin Fields.
Okay.
I hope he drops further enough down to him. That would be nice.
Yeah, well, depending on what mock draft you're looking at, that could potentially happen. And then lastly, we have Astros rookie Kent Emanuel made history with an 8 2/3 inning relief appearance. And that hasn't happened, I believe, since 1988. And he threw 90 pitches. And I believe the starter Jake O left after like 5 pitches with tightness in his forearm. And then Ken came in and went 8 2/3 innings.
It's hard to believe someone really do that much relief. You know, that they wouldn't stick someone else in at some point.
Yeah, and that's one of my big pet peeves about baseball is normally you got a relief pitcher that comes in, pitches maybe an inning, sometimes only faces one batter, and then they're done. And so the fact that he went 8 2/3 is impressive.
Now they do have that new rule this year, which I didn't realize went into effect until I was listening to a Red Sox game. But I guess you have to come in, if you come in relief, you have to pitch to at least 3 batters.
Oh, I didn't even know that yet. So
I thought I had heard that right because they were wondering why they kept the guy in the game and he was getting hit around, and that's why.
Oh, okay.
Supposedly.
Well, I know that's baseball probably trying to speed up the game a little bit.
Well, they also added that, I think that rule, if you go into extra innings, you get to start with the guy in second base.
Okay. Is that in effect? Yeah,
I thought that was in effect too.
Yeah, I know they were talking about that. So, anything to make baseball a little more exciting.
See, Jeff keeps me updated. I was sitting here doing one of our lives, and the UMass was in the hockey finals.
Oh yeah, the
for
Frozen
college.
Four. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
He said the Red Sox won today, so that's good because they haven't looked too well lately.
It's been a roller coaster ride. They started awful, won a few games, and it sounds like they're back to looking not so great.
Not
Yeah,
so great, right. At
Although
least-
they got to win today, so that's good. Yeah.
At least they're on the 500.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to my little news tidbits. The Knicks, extend the winning streak to 9 games by beating the Raptors 120-103. This is unbelievable to me. The Knicks, who were supposed to not even make the playoffs, and they haven't had a winning streak. The last one they had a winning streak this long, they actually made it to the playoffs, which looks like they're going to. I think there's only around 10 games left in the NBA season.
Yeah, I think
now.
10 to 14. Yeah, a couple weeks.
Yeah, and they could be moving. They're in 4th place right now, which I thought my Celtics were going to take. But so it's dicey, but good for them, right?
I got to give it to Tom Thibodeau too. He's a coach that I've always had a ton of respect with from even as a kind of the defensive guy in Boston. And I mean, he's got him playing tough. The Knicks look rugged now. I don't know if they'll make a run at all in the playoffs, but they look like a tough-nosed team, which is going to be a hard out.
Well, you look at their team, and they really shouldn't be in 4th place, really. I mean, they just don't have the roster, in my opinion.
Young. They play tough, though, so give it up to Tibbs.
Right. Let me just check. Go Jazz. Okay.
Wow, number one in the
Danny's a
West.
Jazz fan, yeah. Boston Celtics, they already played. Okay, that was 1 o'clock game. They lost today. That's going to be critical. Trying to think. That would drop them way out. They welcome in Life is Good Today. Thank you for joining us. That's Ronnie. Let's see. Anyone else I missed? I hope I didn't miss anyone else. Okay. Danny's a Utah fan. Who the Celtics playing today? I'm trying to think. Was it Charlotte?
Ooh, I don't know. If it was Charlotte, that's a tough
very
loss. That's a bad loss.
So
Yeah.
Charlotte. I'll have to check that unless Jeffrey wants to let me know that. Okay, next one. This I thought was impressive, so I had to mention. Golden State Warriors' Draymond Green, the big boy, had 19 assists, called Master of Passing by Stephen Curry. Golden State Warriors' Stephen Curry paid Draymond Green the ultimate compliment after watching the forward tie a career high with 19 assists. Curry called Green the smartest basketball player I've played with. I don't know if you have to put in that.
Yeah, that's it seems like a little bit of a stretch for sure, but I do love Draymond Green. I don't know if I'll call him a master of passing either, but
Or massive anything. Really,
yeah,
but-
that's right.
Okay, and this had to be mentioned from the same team. You know, you wouldn't think with the way Golden State's playing this year, they'd have 2 news reports in the same.
Yeah, true.
But Stephen Curry, one of the most remarkable runs in NBA history, is going on right now. The greatest shooter of all time is the hottest scoring run on his career. Stephen Curry is once again playing like an MVP, which he should be in the talk for that. Really should.
I agree with that. Yeah.
It's hard to overstate just how remarkable Curry's current run has been. So let's look at the numbers just for a second. He's averaging 38.7 points in April, which is on the pace to be the highest such mark of any calendar month throughout his remarkable career. Over the past 25 seasons, the only players who have averaged more points in the calendar than Curry this month are James Harden and Kobe Bryant. Not too bad, right?
Yeah,
Company to be in.
It's a solid company.
Entering Friday's game against the Denver Nuggets, Curry had poured in 535 points over his last 15 games, dating back to March 14th. Quite impressive.
Yeah. And he makes it look easy, too.
He does.
What do you think? Do you think he's the best shooter of all time?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see how. Just the way, from where he shoots his 3-point shot alone, you know?
I don't think you could really argue it. That's for sure.
Okay, and my last report is, let's see if I can find it here. Oh, geez. Is on Mr. Gronkowski. Oops. There's always. Okay, sorry about that. Gronkowski broke a Guinness Book of World Record. Now, you didn't hear about this, you said, right?
No, I have not yet. Maybe. No, I don't think so.
This happened last week, and it was at the Arizona State. Is that his alumni? Arizona State?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. What the heck is that? All right. Sorry, guys. Just all this technical difficulty.
So while you're loading that up, they did play the Hornets, and they got the break speed off them, 125 to 104.
Okay.
So the Celtics, did not show up today. That's for sure.
All right. And this is what Gronkowski did. For anyone interested.
What we're going to do is we're going to make it a Guinness Book of World Record catch. We're going to have the highest altitude catch that's ever been done in the world. 600 feet in the air. We're going to have a helicopter drop a ball straight down, and we're going to set a Guinness Book of World Record right here in front of all of you guys. 40 feet, actually. Ready. There we go. Let it rip. There you go. Don't do that thing, man. Perfect. Get right under it. Go ahead, drop it. Put it down. There we go.
Only Gronk, right?
That's right. I gotta say that's pretty impressive though. You can see he's fighting the sun with his hands. You got the Arizona sun. That's pretty impressive.
No one Gronk will find out it was dropped from just above the sea.
That's
about 20 feet away.
I wouldn't be surprised.
So I don't know. Okay, so those are our current news stories, and now we move on to quarter number 2, Brandon. Unless you want to add anything else.
My last thought was I was wondering if Gronk made that catch sober. Actually, that was where I was thinking, where I was going with that.
That would be an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, amongst many other sporting activities, Brandon has taken up running, and we thought this would be an interesting way because one of my bucket list things was to run a marathon down in Disney World, which probably won't happen the older I get. But we thought maybe this would be a good time to share some of the ways that Brandon does prepare for running. You want to do an intro to that? I have some questions here I want to ask you, but
I mean, I'll just kind of say that I was looking for something to kind of change up kind of the daily routine, and that's kind of where I kind of just started running from. And I'll let you kind of ask away with some questions and see if I can give you some good insight.
Okay, I will do that. Just gonna bring up your little there. Oh yeah. Okay, it is. You're one of those guys, I guess. You can figure which one.
Looks like the blue hair might fit me pretty well.
That's
there.
right. I know. Okay, first of all, why did you get into running?
Yeah, so kind of as you mentioned, I've played plenty of sports and been around numerous different types of sports, and was kind of more or less looking for a mental challenge, something that would challenge me mentally, and thinking as I was getting older, sports, you have a lot more risk of injury as you kind of start to get older, and that's something that I was trying to prevent and avoid. And I figured running would be a good mental challenge, as well as something that potentially I wouldn't have to really worry about, spraining an ankle like in basketball, or, any shoulder surgery in baseball, or anything like that. So I figured, running would be something that I absolutely despised, and I would only run if it were in a sport. And so I figured it'd be a good self-challenge, and that's kind of where it started.
Okay, because you've been doing it quite a bit lately. I mean, it used to be maybe once or twice a week, right? But how often do you do it?
Yeah, so it's become almost an everyday an everyday habit actually. And so I would say probably at least 6 times a week. Now the length could be from 4 miles to 12 or 13. It kind of depends. I haven't quite jumped past really a half marathon yet. That's kind of something I'm thinking about doing. But yeah, so it's probably about 6 times on average a week. So I didn't run today as we're doing this. So I guess that's my one day off.
Okay, now let's look a little bit of a timeline here. You did a couple of races past weekend, right? One was actually a virtual race, and another one was on a course.
Yes. So yeah. So last Saturday was a 5K that was on a course in Londonderry, and yeah. So that was an Earth Day run, and then on Sunday I ended up running a virtual half marathon. Yes.
Okay, so what's the distance on those 2 races?
Yeah, so the 5K is 3.2, and then 3.2 miles, and then the half marathon is 13.1 miles. So
Okay,
so a big difference. And the 5K is more or less known as kind of like a sprinter's race, where it's a lot of pretty much going all out for the full 3.2, and then the half marathon is, well, for me, was kind of saving myself a little bit till towards the end. And then, I mean, you do have some people that can kind of sprint their way through a half marathon, but.
So you've worked your way now up to a half marathon, which I imagine that's how you would do it step by step. And is your ultimate goal, you said, is to do a marathon at some point?
Yeah, it's funny. I never would have said that. If you were to ask me a year or 2 ago if I would ever run a full marathon, I would say no, no chance. I'd say you're crazy. But that is the ultimate goal, actually. Yeah, I would love to just, I guess, have that notch on the belt to say that I've ran a full marathon, as well as the training aspect of it as well too. Having that full marathon kind of push me to train, and that's another reason why I got into it, was knowing that I would have to train to run in these long distance races, and kind of forcing me to essentially to train to get out there and run.
Danny says for him a 4K is a marathon. Dan, I agree with you 100%. I tell my family my goal 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, bucket list was to run the Disney Marathon, because I thought just the eye candy alone would keep me going. But older I get, the least that'll be out of my range. Maybe I'll be able to film Brandon or some other family members doing the Disney Marathon at some point while I'm eating my little slushie there on the side.
It's never too late. Actually, I was looking at some of the individuals in the half marathon that did it virtually, and there was upwards to like 70 years old individuals that are 70 years old that were completing half marathons. So it's never too late for you.
No, I know that in theory.
Yeah.
In theory, you're right.
That's right.
So you started running. It was just whatever around the neighborhood, just start running. Now, do you have a certain? We're talking timeline here. We know your timeline is working towards a marathon. How do you prepare for it? Do you try and get a certain miles every time you run? Certain miles per week?
Yeah.
Stop there.
Yeah. So I guess there's kind of 2 school of thoughts now. Luckily I have a friend who is a cross country coach at a high school. And so he kind of has helped me kind of with the training process, but essentially it's the, anytime that you're really training, especially for a longer distance, it's essentially just doing it. And so, for instance, the half marathon, I was anticipating for it to take between an hour and a half to 2 hours. And so it's just going out and running for 2 hours straight. And that was kind of like the training aspect. And it didn't really matter the time. It was just building up your body's efficiency, right, in order to do so. And so that's pretty much the training aspect, is just doing it. Whether that means you're running, 9-minute miles, or if you're running 7:30 miles, just getting out there and running essentially the time that you would think that it would take. Now, this is also kind of a training for somebody who has never done it before. You get somebody who's an Olympic, or, somebody that's trying to win the Boston Marathon. It's going to be the training's going to be a little different for sure.
Right.
But so my thought process is, anytime that I'm going out and running, it's more or less trying to just build my body's efficiency, and however that means. So for instance, I didn't really train for the 5K at all, but there'd be some days where I'd try to run, 6-minute miles for 3.2, just to try to just train for that higher speed. Now that's completely different than doing the half marathon. When doing the half marathon, it's just, trying to make sure that I don't burn myself out halfway through, and I still am able to, finish pretty strong.
Okay, now you've said basically the way you're prepping is by running. Is there, like in other sports, do you do any kind of exercise or any kind of drills at home just to prepare your body, or is it just running?
Yeah, so it's for me. I mean, for me, it's more nutrition based. So, making sure that I'm getting everything that my body needs, nutrition wise and nutrient wise, and then staying fully hydrated, and that's throughout the day, even the days that I'm not running, and then pliability and flexibility. So, trying to injury prevention, and trying to make sure that stretching before as well as after, which I got to be honest, the after stretch for me is something that I tend to skip out on once in a while. And I think that's kind of caught up to me, with some muscle soreness and whatnot. But yeah, so nothing, when you have a specific sport, you're more or less, you're doing different skills in that sport. For running, essentially you're running, and there's no real other skills that you're really working on.
Okay, you gave me a perfect segue to my next question. Okay, we know how you prep basically when you're running, but what about have you changed your diet? Do you eat certain things on race day that you don't do on a day you're not racing, or, how do you handle your food intake now?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I think there's a lot of different school of thoughts on nutrition. For me, I'm a big advocate of, plant-based and really staying away from animal products. And so I haven't really changed that up too much. That's kind of been a belief for a while, even kind of before I started really getting into running. But for more or less race days, that day before, you're trying to get a little more of a carb intake. And so you're able to have that energy throughout the race, especially before a half marathon. And definitely if I were to, or hopefully when I do a full marathon, definitely more of a carb intake on the day before. That way your body's then producing it, or essentially converting it to energy. And you'll have that, be able to withstand that energy throughout whether it's 2 hours or 4 hours, whatever, however long you're running for.
Okay. And you're saying the day before, you always see people preparing, they have that big spaghetti dinner the day before. So
Yep.
Is a certain amount of hours before a race, if it's a nighttime race, are you eating that stuff earlier in the day, or what's the gap there?
So normally, the kind of the rule of thumb is essentially, like they say, like 12 to potentially 18 hours before the race takes off.
Okay.
And that way it gives your body time to convert it to energy, and then it stores that energy, and that energy is still stored. If you do it, 24 to like 30 hours before that, you have a chance of risking that your body then that energy actually that it's stored then starts to turn to fat. And so you have there's a little bit of a gap there, but you never want to carb overload, 4 or 5 hours before, because your body just doesn't have enough time to digest it and then convert it to sugars, which then go to energy. But,
So basically 12 to 15 hours is your meal, and nothing probably other than water. What do you have in the before?
well, so now this is, I'm no Olympic runner by any means, and so they're probably a little different. But so I'll still do a little bit of whatever, banana, some sort of fruit before the race. So before my half marathon, I ended up actually doing, but I did a banana, and I believe I did a small English muffin. And so there's a little bit of carbs there, obviously. So I can't speak for somebody that's, Olympic runner or whatnot. My guess is they're probably a lot more strict with what they're putting in their body. And it probably could be just water.
So you consider running now that you're doing it a lifestyle change?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. So I would say that, it's one of the toughest things that I've done, although it seems like it's becoming pretty easy now. But it's also something that I feel like I need to do almost every day. And so even if it's cold, it's snowing, it's raining, I mean, you know how the winters are. It's, it's something that I still feel like I need to get out there and go do. And so I feel like it is a big lifestyle change for sure.
Did you run through the winter? We have quite the winters up here in New England.
Yes. Yeah. So for the most part I did. Now, I also, coach a varsity basketball team. And so that takes a lot of my time as well too. But any free time that I would have, I would make sure that I got a run in. So I would say my running dips down a little bit in the winter, not because of the winter, just because of time commitment. But if that time commitment wasn't there, I'd be running every day. Yeah.
Welcome in, Eric B. Thank you for joining us. We're talking about Brandon's process for preparing for running right now. Okay, so now that you've basically got yourself on a timeline, you know what you want to do. You're going from smaller races to half marathons to potentially a marathon. We've gone through your eating habits, your stretching technique, and going out and running. So if you were to share with me now, what are the positives and negatives since you began running?
Yeah. So I would, I guess there's a lot more positives that kind of take place than negatives. I'd say if I were to go negatives, one negative potentially might be some nagging injuries. Obviously running takes a little bit of toll on your joints and muscles and whatnot. I've been kind of battling, I think a stress fracture in my foot. I haven't got it looked at yet,
Really?
but it's just something that just kind of nags. It's nothing that's like super crazy painful, but it just like it's there. And then, it kind of pops up here and there. Some days it's fine. Some days it's got a little bit of pain, in it. So that's really the only negative. The only other thing is like, you have to have time to run. And if you go run a mile, a lot of people can run a mile in, 8 or 9 minutes. So it doesn't really take that much time. Some people are even less than that, obviously. But if you're really trying to train, for instance, I didn't fully train too hard for the half marathon that I ran, but the days that I were training, if I'm running for an hour and a half, that's taking an hour and a half out of your
Right.
day. So, so I would say that, you could look at that as a positive or a negative. And the positives are just, I don't even know where to begin with the positives. First is, the fact that you're completely accomplishing a task, whether it's a 5K or it's 5 miles, or anytime that you're running, you accomplish that task, and, builds that self-esteem. As well as the runner's high feeling is completely real. Anytime that I really finish a run, I feel like that I'm kind of on not cloud 9, but I just feel really good.
Right.
And I feel like it's like the euphoria and the endorphins that are being secreted in the brain, and it's completely scientifically proven. And then as well as just the mental aspect of it. Not even to mention like the physical aspect of obviously, potentially weight reduction, you're, toning your body, strengthening your muscles, especially in your lower half. But just the mental aspect of it, where it's been proven to help with, with depression or any stress or anxiety.
Right.
And these are things that I don't really suffer from. But I also don't think I suffer from them because I'm so physically active and running and everything. So I would say the positives are a lot, a lot more than the negatives, really.
I should have mentioned at the beginning, if anyone does have any questions on preparation or anything to do with racing for Brandon, just throw them in the chat here.
Yeah, please do. I'd love to answer them.
Same thing. My biggest problem when I would go out is just I can't do it alone. You got to be willing to just go out and take the time to go. I need someone there to talk to, something like that. So
Yeah.
I guess that's hard to get over that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with that. It's so much easier to run with somebody else. And I would, it's funny. And kind of, I think was it Jeff or somebody that said that their 5K feels like a marathon.
Oh, that was Danny.
Okay,
Yeah.
Danny. Yeah. So, it's funny anytime that I'm running alone, I run for, 4, 5, 6 miles. And that feels like I've ran for like a half marathon because it just feels like it's so long. However, if I'm with somebody, those 13 miles that I run for, it feels literally like 5 miles just because there's communication. Yeah. So so I agree. I must say though, I do enjoy running alone sometimes just because you can just kind of let your mind go and wherever. And a lot of people ask me like, what do you think of? And what are your thoughts when you're running? I don't even really like force it to go anywhere. I let my mind go wherever it is, whether it's like the day, the weather, wherever I'm running, the houses, what's going on around me. I just let my mind kind of just wander while I'm running.
See, that's why I need eye candy. It's weird. I just can't do it. Like Jeffrey says here, he says, I like to do a lot of walking. That's me, the walker. So,
Yeah.
So now, does your wife run with you at all? Or is this something you do yourself?
She doesn't really participate running. She has a few times. She's kind of more like Jeffrey, more of the walking type as well too. And so, we do go out on walks, but she kind of lets me do the running for sure.
So that's your own thing, basically.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I would love for her to partake and potentially get into it, and so maybe that's in the future.
Maybe sometimes she'll follow the good example you set.
Yeah, look, we can only hope so.
That's right.
Yeah.
Welcome in Hughes Studios. Thank you for joining us. We're talking about racing right now with Brandon. Okay, so anything else before we move on to the next quarter that you'd like to share or tell people about going out and getting off the chair or the recliner and going out and running?
I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's your choice, or if you're going to get out there and go. I'll say this: I never thought that I would turn into kind of an everyday runner, and I never really thought that running would be for me. And so I think everybody should give it a try and just kind of see what happens. And there's so much that running has to offer, and I definitely think that it's worth giving it a whirl for sure.
Sounds good, Brandon. Thank you for sharing all that with us. If anyone has any questions later on, even though we're off this topic right now, throw them in the chat, and Brandon will jump in here and answer it. Okay, so we move on to the next one. One thing I'd like to reach out for anyone who has hit the thumbs up. We always appreciate that. It helps us in YouTube. And we are now going to move on to quarter number 3. Which I gotta find quarter number 3 here. See how quick I am with this stuff. All right. Quarter number 3 is a Super Soccer League. Sometimes I reach out and I ask people if they want anything covered during these type of shows, and someone had brought this up to me. So I figured we're not experts at this, but we could throw a little bit of discussion out there in the Super Soccer League. This basically, for anyone who's not familiar, is for the last 3 years, a group of owners, I guess moreover in the European type of leagues, wanted to take the top teams from the soccer leagues, and anyone that's more qualified, throw your 2 cents in, because I'm going on a little bit of knowledge I have. But they were going to start a super league, and this thing was 3 years in the planning. And the only thing that stopped it is the fans. I guess the fans stepped in and protested. And with this 3-year league preparation, went kaput in 48 hours. So are you familiar with this at all, Brandon?
I'm a little familiar with that. I'll probably be asking you some questions and kind of more or less maybe your opinion about it. But yeah, I did hear that it was 12 of the top teams, I believe.
That's what I heard.
Yeah. Who kind of yanked their way out, and then like you said, the the fans kind of pulled them back in. My thought is it money? So I didn't. Whenever I was looking, I wasn't sure if it was money was the issue, or what. I guess what's the thought process? You have any idea?
Well, it was money, and I guess it started out. There were 15 founding clubs that were involved, and I think this was a 20-team league.
Okay.
And then they were going to make the rest of the teams fight it out for those last 5 spots. So I think it was 15 teams were guaranteed to be in this super league every year, and then there'd be 5 new teams based on the standings.
Okay.
They were going to run the games, I think, midweek, because I think they're so they wouldn't interfere with the regular games, which are on the weekend, something like that. So that's where it started. And of course, one of, as you know, we're from the Boston area, and one of our baseball team owner, the Red Sox, John Henry, was one of the ones behind this, and played dumb or legitimately was totally taken off guard when the fans protested, and has spent the week hearing so many jokes from the BBC. And
well, he was the same one that had no idea that the beer and chicken fingers was going on in the clubhouse of the Boston, right? He was the one that said that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, here's something right here that I just noticed. Jeffrey said one of the I think that John Henry's the owner of the Red Sox. Yeah, he owns one of the teams, and he was one of the instigators in this. But there's been some great. If you haven't caught it, there's been some great questions and interviews where people, not our reporters, but from the UK and different countries, have been cornering him, and it's been pretty funny listening to him.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure he's kind of just on edge about that.
I guess the main thing was a lot of the clubs were feeling that you really didn't have a shot unless you were an elite club.
Okay.
The elite clubs had that automatic buy, and that was part of it. And it was based on money. You know, some of these owners, their clubs we're seeing some of the billions of dollars that their clubs are worth over there.
Yeah, big money over in Europe and the European League for sure. What I heard that this was something that they were kind of secretly talking about. It's been going on for a while now.
3 years.
Yeah. So okay. Yeah.
So I the way I understand it right now is it's been discontinued, or whatever you want to call it. They're going to. I guess the owners are going to try and figure a way to modify it, but as of now, it's over with, as far as I know. Anyone else want to add to that? I'd love to read it, but that's where we stand. That's kind of a little update on the Super League. If anyone's heard bits and pieces of that, but they weren't really sure what it was.
So it's interesting though, because if they've been kind of whispering about it, and then they announced that was going to happen, and the fans kind of drew them back in, do you think this is going to kind of be an ongoing type of deal? Do you think in a year or two that this could potentially pop back up?
Well, one of the quotes from several of them was saying they're going to have to, what was the term they use, reevaluate it or something along that line. So they're going to try and find a way to make it work.
Yep.
But you know what they'll have to do, and just purely in my opinion, who follows nothing as far as soccer overseas, is that, you know, you're going to have to find a way to make it a lot fairer to the small clubs to be able to get into it. It can't be an elitist, to take their term, group of teams.
Right. You know, it's interesting. I feel like all sports kind of have that type of deal going on. You know, if you look at the major baseball teams and the major NBA teams and stuff, they always just seem like they kind of always have the upper hand. And so it is kind of fascinating how that is.
Yep. Okay, so that is where we stand on quarter number 3, the Super Soccer League. Is that anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that's it. I'm curious to see kind of how this plays out in the next couple of years, because it sounds like, you know, that they had whispers about it, and then they kind of gained the confidence to go with it, and then all of a sudden they decided to back out. So
right,
we'll see. I could see this being a kind of an ongoing thing for a couple, maybe not next year, but in a few years.
Right, I agree. So moving on to quarter number 4, I'm sorry, into an overtime period for some reason.
We might be, yeah.
Me and Brandon were sitting around and bantering about the NFL draft, which is next week, and thought, no, that would be a good segment.
Thursday, right?
I think it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right?
Yeah, yep. Starts next Thursday, yeah.
and thought that would be a great thing just to throw out there. It is such a Mod Podge or mixture this year. I mean, there's no, other than the first round pick, really. I think no one disagrees with who the first pick overall is going to be.
Yeah. I think Trevor Lawrence is by far going to be that guy, and no one's debating that. But after that, you have a whole bunch of just who knows what's going to happen.
Right. Now I have 4 different projected mock drafts in front of me, and boy, they could vary. So we're just going to kind of talk about the players, and if anyone out there has any kind of opinion, please throw it in the chat. Let's see. Trevor with Eric B. My Tampa Bay Rays win the peanuts for a payroll. Yeah, right about that.
That's just, and I loved when Tampa Bay was fully relevant. I loved. I mean, I guess they actually pretty much still are relevant, but I love when they're in the mix just because of that payroll.
They do. I guess you'd say along with the Oakland Athletics, they do the most with the least amount. I mean, they keep coming up with pitching and a competitive team without really putting the big money out there.
Yeah, no, great drafting and guys going through, their minor league teams and yeah, I think the good coaching as well too.
Right. You just don't hear about Tampa Bay handing out these ridiculous contract like the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Dodgers and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So,
although I think when I say good coaching, I think with the whole Blake Snell debacle, right? You probably keep him in, not keeping him in, yanking him. I think you potentially could argue that maybe it's not good coaching, but
right. But we get in a little bit of a tangent.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Bill from MGM. Eric said went to World Series last year with nothing against the Dodgers monster payroll.
Huge payroll, huge,
absolutely
huge.
Okay. Oh, and Jeffrey says, I wonder what the Pats will do Thursday night. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about.
Yeah, that's right.
They're very relevant in this draft. But okay, so let's just kind of hang at the top of the draft, and we both agree Trevor Lawrence. I don't think anyone out there is going to disagree that he's.
I agree with that. Actually, I'm just curious. What are your thoughts on Trevor Lawrence? I have a big opinion on him. I don't know if you have an opinion at all on Trevor Lawrence.
I'll tell you, I said this a month ago with really nothing to back it up. But if I'm Jacksonville, I'd almost look to trade that for the amount they could get. Trade for a quality quarterback, or even take go down a notch. And imagine the draft picks they could get to completely rebuild that team in 1 year.
But I mean, yeah, you potentially could. You trade back maybe 2 spots to 3, you're still going to get a quality quarterback. Right. However, I think Trevor Lawrence is an absolute stud, and I don't know if I cannot draft him. If he's falling into my lap, I think I have to go with Trevor Lawrence.
So you think he's a no miss, basically?
I think he's the real deal for sure, and I don't think I'm really going out on a limb. I think a lot of people think that, but
I think everyone thinks that.
I memean, when you have that arm strength, that size, he's a capable runner. He won the national championship as a true freshman for Clemson, and they had talent on that team. But I mean, he beat out a good senior who was coming back from a great year. I think he's a real deal.
If you're going to stay at number 1, I agree. You got to go with him.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if they traded down a little, the package they could get, they could almost rebuild that whole team in 1 year.
Yeah. No, you're right about that.
But we'll see.
He might have the best hair in the draft too.
Well,
actually, yeah.
If that makes anything, right?
Yeah, that's right. Something I might strive for.
And it seems like all the projections I have Zach Wilson at number 2 to go into the Jets.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's probably going to happen. Although who the heck really knows? How do you feel about Zach Wilson? I'm not completely sold on him by any means.
I'm not sold on anyone below Lawrence, but he probably would take him there.
See, I know this. We're probably going to talk about this name in a little bit here, but for some reason I can't wrap my head around how pretty much all year and during the college football year it was Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, and then all of a sudden. Then it's Justin Fields just kind of goes away, and you didn't really hear. Did you ever hear about Zach Wilson during the
no, he got nowhere.
Yeah.
Nowhere.
And so, and so it just kind of it's interesting how that happens. And Fields had a great pro day as well too. So, but a lot of mock drafts have Zach Wilson, and I think that's probably where the Jets are going. The Jets are definitely going to go quarterback. It's just who are they going to go with? Yeah.
This is a really good point by Eric B. Jacksonville wants a face of the franchise guy to market, so Lawrence makes him relevant. And that's true. If you put everything I just said aside and you look at it, who's going to bring you into relevance with your fans and everything? It's going to be a quarterback.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So,
yeah. And I think Lawrence is the guy. He's done a lot off the field too already. Even when he was at Clemson, I mean, he was one of the big name players that was trying to get a football season during COVID, and he was kind of one of the leaders for that. So I think he's a great guy off the field as well too, which is obviously something that you want to build your franchise around.
I mean, you can't get into the community right now until you're actually drafted. But
yeah,
but you're right. You make yourself relevant even before you're drafted.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And that's true, Eric. What you're saying about watching Jacksonville for Lawrence. I mean, I'll turn on the Jacks. I probably wouldn't have. Well, I'll turn any football game, but I mean, I'd be less likely to turn on the Jacksonville game. But I would want to see see him.
You're telling me if they still have Blake Bortles, you probably wouldn't be tuning into a Jacksonville game.
No, not even close. But it's funny. Football is the only sport I can watch any team no matter how bad they are. I don't know why that is.
Yeah. I think that is kind of just football in general. Yeah.
And it's not that we're in. Well, combined, what are we in? About 10 fantasy football leagues total.
Yeah, I'd say combined. Yeah. That's probably why you're tuning into Cincinnati Bengals games.
That's right. Yeah. And that will be a discussion maybe for another one of our shows. Just talk about the fantasy football aspect. It would be a fun one.
Yep.
Okay, so we both leaning towards agreeing with the consensus that Lawrence and Wilson are going to be a top 2 picks. Now, boy, they're all over the board at number 3 here. Okay, I've got, like I said, I got 4 sheets in front of me here. I got one that they have Mac Jones at 3rd pick. Another one that has him at 10th. Another one at 19th. Where do you put Mac Jones in the whole scheme of things?
That's a great question. I personally like Justin Fields more than Mac Jones. I think he's definitely more athletic. Mac Jones had a better college football year. I mean, he obviously Alabama. I mean, they have the Heisman in for a wide receiver, and so as well as another great wide receiver is probably going to go in the late 1st, early 2nd round. So they have a ton of weapons, and he was completely accurate. But I think Justin Fields just kind of has more of that it factor. So I probably would say Mac Jones maybe would be the 4th, maybe 5th. Trey Lance is the other quarterback that's up there. I'm going to put Mac Jones the 5th best quarterback. And so obviously who knows where that puts him team wise, but the San Fran pick is interesting because they obviously traded up for it. And the only way you trade up and you give up as much as you did for that pick is your guy's going to be there. And so they probably kind of like what we're saying, no, Lawrence is going 1, probably Zach Wilson's going 2. So which guy did they trade up for? Who is that? And it sounds like they're going quarterback. And if you give up that much aspect or that draft capital, you're probably going to quarterback. So which one is it? And so that's where I'm at with that.
And I would not want to be San Francisco there because you're talking the 3rd best quarterback. You're talking a potential bust too. And I agree with you. I have Mac Jones 5th on my list. I have Justin Fields, and then I have Trey Lance?
Yeah, Trey Lance. Yep.
Yeah. So I have the same order of quarterbacks as you do. So I'm surprised that, and I guess a couple of these, like I said, 10th and 19th. So he's all over the place. I would not want to be San Francisco's pick. You almost want someone to pick those first 3 and get them out of the way. Justin Fields, I have is a strong number 3 also, and I think they keep on asking the question why he's dropped. He was down low, then he shot up into the top 5, and now he's down lower again. And I think it's all because of that. Is it epilepsy scare that they have with him?
Yeah. Yep.
I think it's all from that, don't you?
Which is, I mean, if that's a reason why you would pass on the potentially third best quarterback. I don't know if I agree with that.
No, but it helps me and my team. No,
Yeah.
hopefully
Well,
they'll
that's
drop,
true.
Right?
That's true.
Welcome in, Paul Lyons. Thank you for joining us.
I think I look at Mac Jones as kind of like a Daniel Jones. I don't know if you remember that draft. What was that, 3 years ago now? Was that 3 years? Yeah, well, 2 years because he's going in. I think Daniel Jones is going to his third year. But it was weird because they said if he doesn't get drafted by the Giants, I think they had the 6th pick, then they thought that there's a chance that he wasn't even going the first round yet. So I don't think Mac Jones is going to go that far back, but I could see him, if he doesn't get picked third, I could see him ending up, 19, 20, maybe in that range. So
yeah, I hear you. All right, so we've kind of laid out our. It sounds like we had the same order: Lawrence, Wilson, Fields,
yeah. Trey Lance, yeah.
and then next one. So
Yeah.
we've covered that. So
Yeah.
now dropping further down on the scale, they've got this tight end, Kyle Pitts. How high do you think he's going to go? Now, the ones the draft sheets I have in front of me have 6, 6, 4. I have him going in the top 10. I guess they're comparing this guy to a Shannon Sharp.
Yeah, I don't know. Have you seen any of the video footage
Nothing.
or his numbers? Freak athlete.
Is he?
Out? Yeah, he's they're saying that you could put him as a wide receiver and he would be a dominant wide receiver. However, he's built like a tight end, and so he's just a freak physique wise and skill wise, and he's got great hands as well too. I think he is kind of the weird X factor in this draft. And what I mean by that is Miami traded, had that trade where then they traded their pick to like 12, but then traded back into 6.
Right.
I think they did that thinking he was going to be on the board.
Okay.
And now it's weird now that Detroit's saying that they're potentially would shop their 7th overall pick.
Right.
Because I think that they no longer think that he's going to be there. So I think Detroit thought that he could potentially be there as well. And I think he's the one that's kind of throwing this draft weirdly around.
Well, that makes a lot of sense too, because all the stuff in front of me shows that he's going to be in the top 6 pick.
Yeah.
So that he wouldn't be if you're there for Detroit, and you're not going to trade up if you're Detroit. You'd have to give up too much to go up.
Right.
That's a very good point.
So I think he's a stud. I think he might be after Trevor Lawrence. I think he's the 2nd best player in the draft.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I feel pretty strongly about that.
But you couldn't take him if you're talking 2nd best. You New York Jets, you can't take him. San Francisco, you can't take him. Well, you got a tight end that's phenomenal.
Yep.
Falcons, I think, wanted him. In fact, some of these mock drafts have the Falcons taking it. So he's not going to go higher than probably 4th, but
yeah,
could go that high.
Right. So yeah, and I think so. The interesting thing is so you have the Falcons there, but do the Falcons go quarterback even though they have Matt Ryan? I know some mock drafts have Trey Lance there, or even Justin Fields if Mac Jones goes 3rd.
Right.
So yeah, that's going to be kind of fun to see how that plays out for sure. But I think Kyle Pitts is the real deal for sure.
Darian, I miss you. Thank you for joining us, Darian. We're just talking the NFL draft right now. Let's see if I miss anyone else. Okay, we might as well keep on this pattern now. We cover the quarterbacks. We cover the tight end, who's really there's only one out there.
No.
Why don't we move on to this is probably the easiest way to do it, is just move on to wide receivers. Stick with the offense.
Let's do it.
I guess the first one on the board here, well, there's a couple, right? There's Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle. Would you say those are the top 2?
Yeah,
Devon Smith also?
Smith from
So those
Heisman,
3.
yeah.
So where do you see those guys going?
So that's tough for me. I think Chase is probably the best out of them. Even though Devontae Smith won the Heisman, I don't know if Devontae Smith has an NFL body. Well, I know he doesn't have an NFL body, but I think he's like 180, I think 175 weight wise, and so he's pretty small. He's elusive and quick. but I don't know if he's got the body to kind of hold up to in the NFL.
I think it's one of the reasons he's out of the top 10 on most lists.
Yeah.
Just because of that. He doesn't have that all-around receiver,
Yep.
Terrell Owens type of thing.
And Jamar Chase is like he's like a poor man's DK Metcalf. That's kind of how I look at him. He's not as big, but he's big for a wide receiver, and he's a freak athlete as well too. So I think he's probably the top dog wide receiver wise. Where do you think he ends up going?
I say top 10, but I don't. There's a part of me that doesn't think any of the receivers are going to go in the top 10.
Yeah. Okay.
There's enough of them out there that they'll probably go down to, 10 to 15 type of range, 10 to 17. So even though some of them are rated higher, I don't go along with the theory of they're going to be the top 10 at all, any of them.
So he's an interesting one because he's got the connection with Joe Burrows. So you got Cincinnati at 5, where he was obviously LSU. Joe Burrow, graduated from LSU last year. On Cincinnati, do they go with that connection? Are they kind of ready to kind of move past the AJ Green kind of wide receiver days, or do they go offensive lineman like they desperately need?
Right. Now Eric B says, I want Jamar Chase from LSU to go number 6 for his Dolphins. Now, looking at
I think if he gets by 5, I think there's a good chance of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look at the mock drafts we have. We got one guy thinking that Cincinnati will take him at 5, but then you got another couple that think Miami will get him at 6. You might be in luck there, Eric. But, you also have one dropping all the way down to the Patriots at 12. Hey, there's another theory that the Pats are going to trade up from 15 to 12. But it's not going to take a quarterback. It's to get Chase.
Yeah.
I don't see that coming. I don't think there's a bit of truth in that. Do you?
No, I don't think so.
They already squandered the first round pick a couple of years ago on.
Belichick's track record with drafting wide receivers is absolutely miserable.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe he's out there trying to potentially fix that. But I think they probably, if one of the quarterbacks slides to them, I think they go. They maybe even if Mac Jones is there, they maybe go Mac Jones. But
knowing Belichick, the quarterback will slide to them, and then we'll hear that he traded down.
Yeah, that's right.
Several draft picks.
Yeah, that's
the way he goes.
That's right.
So we both like Chase, but I don't like him in the top 10. Do you like him in the top 10?
I do like him in the top 10. Yeah,
Okay.
I think he's there now. I don't know. Like, I don't think he's going to go to Arizona, and I don't think he'll go 9 if everything stays true to the Broncos. I don't even think he goes 8 to the Panthers because they have a pretty good wide receiving crew. So maybe not. If he actually, you know what? Because then you got Cowboys at 10, I think, right? Are the Cowboys at 10?
The Cowboys at 10. Yeah.
So if that's the case, so if he doesn't go 5 or 6, I don't know if he goes in the top 10. So maybe you might be onto something with that.
We'll see. And then let's see. We covered Smith, who we both agree will be out of the top 10 just because he's not the all-around prototype wide receiver.
Yeah.
What about Waddle?
Yeah. So he's interesting to me because I guess I don't know enough about him. He's like super physical and tough. But I'm not entirely sure with his skill set, I guess. So I don't know a full enough about him.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about him. I mean, he's another one. Like I said, I don't think any receiver is going to go in the top 10, so he would fall out of that too. But I put him somewhere between Smith and Chase.
Okay.
Chase?
Yeah.
Chase.
Yep.
Somewhere in there. Okay, those are.
See, I probably go Smith over him because
Okay.
I trust the eye test. I'll give Smith the eye test. I don't know enough with Waddle with the eye test, so.
Okay, well, we're running out of time here, so let's jump from offense to let's call them specialty positions. Not your specialty positions, but your like Sewell from Oregon, the offensive tackle, picked to go in the top 10 on every mock draft I've looked at.
Yeah.
What do you think of him?
Yeah, so I think looking at him, I mean, I think he's by far the top offensive tackle for sure. Great athleticism, moves really well. A good run a good run blocker as well as pass blocker. So I think he's by far the top offensive tackle. He's going to be the first one off the board for sure. Just where is he going to go? Essentially, I think if he doesn't go 5, I think he could slide back to like that 9-10 area. But
yeah, a lot of people think he's looking at protecting Burrows and heading to Cincinnati. So
yeah,
that will be an interesting one right there.
So I think that goes to like the Chase aspect of it, where if they go Chase, I think he slides obviously back to that. But then if they don't go Chase and they go with him, obviously he's I think that's a great pick.
Yeah, I mean looking at even in Arizona picking him up if he drops down there. But okay, so let's skim over defensive players, just say in the top part of the draft. The ones that pop on the board to me are, let's look at the cornerbacks first. There's a couple big cornerbacks out there. Surtain from Alabama and Horn from South Carolina. Do you have any input on either of those? Or?
So I don't really know too much about either one of them. I will say I normally like to trust a defensive player from Alabama. Normally you can't really go wrong with Alabama defenders.
Right.
I mean, you're pretty familiar with Dante Hightower, and he panned out pretty well for New England. I will say this though, Jace Horn, I believe, is a son of Joe Horn. I don't know. Do you remember Joe Horn? The wide receiver for the Saints for a while. I believe that is his kid, and he looks like a physical specimen, and he looks like he's legit, physical, quick and fast. So I would probably say he, just from kind of what I've heard, and I haven't really seen much, I would say that he probably would be my guy, my number one cornerback over Surtain.
Okay, so you pick Horn over.
I
lean a little bit towards Surtain, but I think both are going to be right around, just edging out of their top 10, 10, 11, 10 to say 13th area. They're both top cornerbacks when they start looking at, I mean, these will be the first defensive play people that we've played.
Yeah, I think the two cornerbacks are. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and then just let's just finish out. So we say we're going to top 16 here. These are names I'm really not familiar with. You got an edge rusher from Miami, Jalen Phillips.
Yeah, I think just a speedster. Right? I think he's a speedster off the end. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure if
he's quick.
Yeah,
he's definitely quick.
Yeah.
So he would probably be the top one of that position. Also.
Yeah.
And then it looks like bouncing back. Just sticking with the top 16 here. You've got 3 offensive linemen. You get 3 offensive linemen. Slater, Tucker, and Darisaw, who are all supposed to be decent linemen. All of them are projected to go from the 12th to the 20th range. Do you have any input on any of those 3, or just?
I don't, to be honest. I'll say this though. I don't know if is there really a ton of input to go with offensive linemen. It just always seems like
size, a little bit of quickness, right?
Who's a little more athletic? Who's who's better off off the ball? Although if you can develop a quality offensive line in the NFL, I think your team normally is going to do pretty well.
Right. They, not that they look down on it, but I don't think they give the value. Maybe they do more nowadays, but boy, that having that guy in the middle to protect your quarterback, to open up the hole for the running back,
yeah.
I don't think they give as much value.
Yeah. And I think offensive linemen, especially nowadays, are freak athletes too. You got guys that are 300 plus pounds that can get out and move.
If you can get one that can move.
Yeah.
Eric says that Surtain's dad played for the Dolphins for years, former Pro Bowler.
Okay.
That's interesting.
That's news to me. Yeah.
Okay.
Before we head up, I don't know if you're about to close on up. I'm curious. What if you were to, have the ideal situation for your Patriots? What would it be?
And that's interesting. Someone brought that up earlier in the chat. I can't remember who. We were talking about the Pats, and this is going to be the most interesting, fun draft this year. I would hate to be in Belichick and his staff shoes this year, but because I think you're going to be berated no matter what you do, unless you have one of those quarterbacks laying right in your lap. If you take one of these receivers and he doesn't pan out, you're going to get. Who am I thinking of? Why did I have brain cramp all of a sudden? A couple of years ago, who's the wide receiver they have now? Can't think of the name all of a sudden.
McNeil, right?
Yeah, it's like that. Okay, whatever. I don't know
N'Keal Harry.
N'Keal Harry, thank you.
N'Keal
Yeah.
Harry, yeah.
I still think the guy's got great potential.
Yeah.
And he was not used under the Brady regime, but
Yeah.
but you got that hanging over your shoulder, the reputation that you can't do a wide receiver, so that eliminates that, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to go for. He loves defense. Belichick loves defense, but the only
It's
way
not
you're going
a ton of a cornerback.
well, you're going to have. Well, you'd have to trade down. I mean,
Yeah.
and try and get a couple picks there.
There's a linebacker from Penn State, Parsons, I think, who I could potentially see him trading down and going to get, because I think he's a top linebacker. I think that's his name, Parsons.
Parsons.
And he's
yeah,
and I think he's a stud. So I could kind of potentially see that.
Even though most have him down close to the 20th pick, so I guess you have a perfect example of Belichick trading back and
yeah, that's what I could see.
trying to get a couple picks.
Yeah.
But I look at the Pats of trying to get one of those quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But it might just not happen. You might not be able to do it. So
Yeah. So realistically, is Fields your guy that you would?
yeah, I would try and get Fields if I could, if I was in.
Yeah.
Only because not if he's at the number 3, which originally, but only if he drops, and they can trade up either with Detroit for the 7th or Dallas for the 10th.
Yeah.
If he drops down to the 7th through 10th slot, I would look at him. What do you think?
No, I mean, I think if Fields is on the board, I think you have to go with him. If you're New England, I think also, and I was actually going to ask you your thoughts on Trey Lance, because I kind of have a theory on Trey Lance as well too. But I think if either one of those guys are on the board, I think they have to. Now, I don't think they will be on the board by any means. I think they'd have to trade up to go get them. But if they are on the board, I think you.
What
have
about
to
Mac Jones? We both rank him the 5th out of the class. Would you trade up for him? And how far up would you trade?
That's a great question. I guess how much faith in Stidham do you have?
See, I like Stidham, but
Okay,
I don't think they have any
Yeah.
faith in him. It's more what they think.
Because that's fascinating to me too, because they originally, before they signed Cam Newton last year, it sounded like they had all the faith in the world in
Yeah.
Stidham, and now it sounds like they have no faith.
That was the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
Even at the end when they were eliminated, they didn't give him a shot.
Yeah, which is
most bizarre thing I've ever seen.
So I guess if you don't have the complete faith in him, which it doesn't sound like they do, I mean, if Mac Jones is there at 14, 15, I mean, I think if Lance or Fields is there at 15, you have to, 14, 15, you have to go up and get him. I think you have to.
See, I say the same as 15 with Mac Jones.
Too? Okay.
Yeah, only because we have him in the top 5. At 15, if you can get him down there, it's worth taking a shot.
Mac Jones feels kind of like a New England kind of quarterback too. Accurate. He seems like kind of almost like a Brady-esque kind of guy. Yeah.
Because he's not a big runner, right?
No, he can kind of move a little bit more than Brady, which I mean you could argue just about anybody could move a little bit like that, a little better than Brady. But yeah, more accurate in the pocket kind of guy who has a really high IQ as well too, football
Right.
IQ.
Okay. Well, on that note, do you have anything else to say in closing?
No, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I appreciate you having me here, John. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for everyone tuning in. Our next live will be this Wednesday at 2:00. Be back with Nancy and Brandon. Thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully we can do this again down the road.
Would love to, yeah.
And we wish you all have a good Sunday. Thank you again for joining us.